Steve, it's great to have you back on the show. And of course, this is an interview that I thought would never come for this reason. Of course, talking about new music from you and, of course, your new band, The Perfect Foil. And I'm just super excited that this is the reason why we're talking again.
Right. Yeah, that was a long haul between projects, wasn't it?
Yeah. And it makes me feel old every time I see somebody commenting like, it's been 22 years, but we got new music from Steve Taylor. I'm like, oh, man, it's been that long.
Yeah. I think what happens is every year that went by just reminded me, wow, it's another year. People are really going to expect this to be good.
Right.
Just based purely on the amount of time that we've had to make it. So it was kind of managed to, the longer it took, the more the pressure kind of seemed to be built up. So
Right, because after a certain point, you're kind of like, is this going to turn into another Chinese democracy somehow? Is it too hyped at this point? And yeah, that's just a hard place to be, man.
That's right. Thankfully, we didn't have to worry about a big corporate record label cranking up the PR machinery too big. So
yeah, for sure. Well, and it's been nice. I mean, everything that I've seen from everybody, especially on social media, has been positive about the new record Goliath, and I think that is something that is fantastic, especially considering, I mean, it's not like you echoed a sound that you had already done before. It was something new from you, but at the same time, I think it had the sensibilities that people know and appreciate from you. And because of that, it transcended any sort of, oh, well, it didn't sound like Squint, or it didn't sound like I Predict, or it didn't sound like I Want to Be a Clone, or any of the other records. It was nice that it was able to be the same and different at the same time in a good way. Oh,
thanks. Yeah, that was another concern because people, wherever they kind of joined you on the journey, they, I think sometimes we kind of want artists frozen in that particular time period. So everybody's been very gracious and given us some space to reinvent what we should sound like.
Absolutely. Now, of course, there were some people who you met up with who weren't as big of fans. In your promotional video where you went out and you actually paid strangers on the street to listen to songs from Goliath, now, were all the reactions that way, or were those just like the most negative ones that you got?
Yeah, so when we did this, and our manager, Nick Beret, had originally come up with the idea of paying people to listen to the music. And so I thought, well, if we did that with people putting on headphones and actually recording their reaction, I'll bet we could get some interesting reactions. But I was reasonably certain that I wouldn't get the reaction that I was hoping for if I just played them our music.
Right.
So I started off playing them, I don't even remember this guy's name. It was like a kind of a rockabilly track back in the late 60s with the guy screaming over the top. I need to find out what this track was. And it was almost unlistenable. And amazingly, maybe because on Lower Broadway on a Thursday night, everybody's either a little drunk or just really, really into country music. But too many people were liking it.
Oh.
So I had to take executive action, and I switched to a track by one of my favorite bands, Deerhoof.
Uh-huh.
But I was pretty sure that this track would get the reaction we were looking for, so we started playing them this Deerhoof track. And the singer is Japanese, actually, and the lyrics are really oddball, and the music is sort of atonal, and there is no discernible beat to it or anything like that. So that was where we got the reaction that we were looking for.
Nice.
Yeah, so we never actually played our own music to anybody on Lower Broadway.
Oh.
It was all other people's music that we thought would annoy Lower Broadway goers at that time of day. And I got to say, I love this band Deerhoof. They got a new album out, one of my favorite bands. But I tried to get my daughter into their music probably at too early of an age. And ever since then, she's never trusted me with anything musical. So after that, she became a Celine Dion fan, which, really hurt.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so there you go. Now you know the secret.
Now, how weird must that be for you to have a daughter who's rebelling to Celine Dion?
I know. No, it was one of the saddest days at our home. I come home one day, and she says, Daddy, I want you to download the song from the Titanic. And I said, what? She was like 10 at the time, I think. And, we'd only had her for a couple of years. She was from Africa.
Yeah.
And you're not talking about My Heart Will Go On. She said, yeah, that one. And I said, somebody tell you about that song at school or something like that? She said, yes, I want that song. I said, you want me to download Celine Dion for you on your iPod? I begged her. I said, think about what you're asking. And she said, no, I want that song. So I finally gave in, and I put Celine Dion, My Heart Will Go on her iPod. And then she said, and I want you to print out the lyrics. And I said, nope, that's where I'm drawing the line. I am not printing out those lyrics for you. I don't care how many times you ask. So 5 minutes later, she's up in her room. She's got her headphones on. She's listening to My Heart Will Go On, and she's transcribing the lyrics by hand.
Oh!
So this is what happens when you try to get your kids into the music that you like at too early of an age. They rebel. They break your heart.
Oh, my goodness. That is terrifying. Oh, that's fantastic, though. Oh, man. So the new record, I know that some of these tracks have been brewing for a long time. What is the longest that you've been working on any one song from Goliath?
Yeah, that's an easy answer. It was the song Comedian, which is the last song on the album.
Okay.
And I actually started that, oh, my gosh, like 22 years ago or something, I think.
Oh, wow.
And it was just one of those ideas that I just didn't want to screw up. I thought it was a really good idea, and I thought it had really good potential. But the lyric, this idea of, like a couplet and then following it with no pun intended, seemed like a really strong idea, but it had a very narrow, just a really fine line in trying to pull a song like that off. It couldn't really be jokey, and it couldn't be cute. And it was a really hard lyric to write. I don't think there's probably been a week that's gone by in all those decades that I haven't thought about that song in some form and just rolled the idea around in my head or played with a different couplet or rhyme scheme or something like that. And as we got closer to finishing the album, that one was one of the last ones to get done, and I don't think I actually brought it to the band until pretty late in the game.
Oh, wow.
We were trying to figure out, we knew we needed obviously at least 10 songs. Yeah. And I said, well, I've got this one I've been working on for a long time. What do you think? And at that point, it was really bare as far as its construction, and I probably only had half the lyrics done, and they very kindly went with it and let me keep working on it, and it finally all came together in the studio, and I think all of us are really happy with the way it turned out.
Nice. Now, when you were originally writing it, what was the intended destination for that at the time? I mean, was it intended for a follow-up to Squin or what?
Yes. Yeah, it was going to be a follow-up to Squint.
Okay, fantastic. Now,
you guys... everything else, I think just about all the other songs came once we actually started, this band started getting together and playing around in the studio. I think that was the only one that was like a holdover from a long time ago.
Oh, okay. I gotcha. Now, you guys, of course, have also included in the album Goliath the song from the soundtrack for Blue Light Jazz. Now, is that the same version that is on that soundtrack, or did you guys do anything different to it?
It's a different version. In many ways, the Blue Light Jazz version was almost like a remix that Danny Syme from Phenomena did. We liked the song, but it didn't. Its kind of demo form back then didn't quite fit the rest of the sound of the soundtrack that Danny had done.
Right.
And so we gave it to Danny, and he really kind of, in some ways, reinvented the song for the end titles for the movie. And then we liked the song a lot, and so we thought, well, this might be good to include on the album. And we didn't go back to our original arrangement, but we kind of did a hybrid that I think we're all happy with.
Okay, fantastic. That's awesome. Now, what do you think thus far has been the track off of Goliath that has gotten the most listener or fan response to this point?
Good question, because I think, for one, we really wanted to make an album where there wasn't any dead weight, or there weren't any songs that were there to fill up space. And so we were pretty brutal with each other on making sure that all the tracks counted. And maybe that's why, but honestly, we've kind of done informal polling, and certainly people have favorite tracks, but there is not any clear consensus winner. I'm assuming something will emerge eventually.
Right.
Every song seems to have its fans, and every song seems to have at least, a few people that have said this one's my favorite. So, yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I think in some ways that Comedian track is one that stands out just because it's kind of a more epic sounding song, I guess. And, but yeah, I'm not sure there's a clear consensus winner yet.
Right. And it's funny because I'm just now noticing that almost from the first track to the last, they almost get consistently longer with the exception of Double Negative.
Oh, yeah, I never thought of that. I suppose that's true.
I mean, it's
songs on this album.
Yeah, because it's a gradual progression, and some of it goes up and down a little bit. But I mean, the first track, Only a Ride, is only 2:22, and then the last track is 6:25, and then the only one that's over 4 minutes is the second to the last track.
Right. Yeah.
I'm guessing that by your surprise that wasn't intentional in any way.
No, we played around a bit with sequences, but Danny Syme, again, from Phenomena in Portland, a Portland-based band who had done the Blue Like Jazz scoring, and then we asked him to mix the album.
Okay.
So he got way into it, and not only did a great job on mixing, but he really took just a strong interest in everything else as well. And so I said, "You got any ideas on mixing on the sequence of the album?" And he came back with like very definite ideas on. I think it should go like this. And then he gave all the reasons why.
Oh, wow.
I mean, he wrote like this probably 3-page treatise on. Imagine like a character sitting down with the album and listening through, and then he described how they would react upon listening to it with this sequence. And it was pretty convincing. So I think we ended up going with his sequence with maybe, we might have swapped like the ninth and the order of the eighth and the ninth track, but otherwise I think we went with Danny's sequence.
Wow, that's fantastic. Yeah. Cool.
He was very insistent that, in a nice way, that Comedian had to close the album. I wasn't sure if that was a good idea or not, but he was very persuasive. And everybody kind of felt like Only a Ride should open the album.
Yeah.
It's got Peter's Count Off, and it was the first track that we wrote together as a band. So that all made sense. But then Danny kind of swung it all towards the sequence that we ended up with.
That's fantastic. Now, you guys have already done 3 music videos, which you released kind of leading up to the release of Goliath. Is there one for you that stands out more than the other? I mean, they're all extremely different.
Right, yeah. Well, I could talk about this all day. I really love all 3 of them for different reasons, and all 3 of them came from kind of different places, all somewhat connected to kind of who we are as a band, and then, my filmmaking past.
Right.
Only a Ride was, it came about because I was getting ready to do this Storyline Film Festival that I hosted a couple weeks ago for my friend Don Miller, that does the Storyline Conference, and he thought it would be fun if the day before the conference started, if we hosted a film festival, and so he let me curate the whole thing, and we just had a blast. But while we were prepping it, my manager, Nick Beret, had this idea years ago for me to host something similar in Nashville. So I went to him for ideas, and we're talking through what we might do. And he thought, we should play some weird trailers at the beginning of the film festival. And then he said, check this out. And he played me the trailer for this movie, Stunt Rock, which is a pretty famous kind of cult classic kind of, I think they call it Ozploitation, because it's exploitation movies from Australia.
Oh, okay.
It's just a weird hybrid of like a progressive rock band from the late 70s named Sorcery or Sorcerer, something like that, and combined with like stunts that were staged by this famous, he's actually a British director, Brian Trenchard Smith, who was like a favorite of Quentin Tarantino. And so he played me the trailer for this movie Stunt Rock, and it was fantastic. It was, just really, really strange. And so I said, oh yeah, we definitely got to show this trailer. And then a few minutes later, Nick said, hey, wait a minute. And he said, play Only a Ride. And he started the trailer with the sound off. And not only did the two match up perfectly lengthwise, but it was like this trailer was made for this song. It was like, The Wizard of Oz and Dark Side of the Moon, where you start Dark Side of the Moon at this certain point at the beginning of Wizard of Oz, and it adds a whole other layer of subtext to it. So it was so perfect. Now the problem is, how are we going to get permission to use this because this has to happen.
Right.
And so we contacted the director, and he was game for it, and he let us replace the band in the stunt rock trailer, because you actually see this band, the Sorcerer or Sorcery, and they're on stage with a wizard. And so he let us replace the band with our band, but we got to keep the wizard. And so that's where the whole thing came out. The wizard is from, 1979. Our band is obviously from 3 months ago. And Seth Worley is a longtime friend, and he actually had directed the Kickstarter piece that we did. And he's a guy I've worked with for years, and it's just fantastic. So he's the one who shot all this band footage and then composited in the wizard. So I love the way that turned out. I think that one leaves as many people scratching their heads as love it, but that's probably fine.
That's awesome.
But then for standing in line, I've got a friend who works at the art house cinema here in town called the Belcourt, and he was making these trailers they would do reissues of like foreign films, maybe they'd be bringing doing a series of French films from the 60s. And so he would make new trailers for these films. I sent him that track. I said, do you have any ideas? And he came back with 5 different ideas for old obscure movies that he could recut as if, this was a trailer for the reissue of the movie. And all he did was show me that scene in black and white of a man and a woman sitting on opposite sides of in the front seat of a car. And then you realize that the car is actually cut in half and the two sides are coming together. And it's like an automobile exhibition showroom. And it was like, yeah, that's the one, do that. And so he found this obscure movie by a Polish director who had made one movie in France in 1967 maybe called Late Apart, and put that whole video together for Standing in Line. And I just thought it added a whole other subtext to the song, and it just made it really, really beautiful and poetic. And then for Goliath, Jonathan Richter, who I've worked with for years, did the Cash Cow video and did all the special effects and animation and Blue Light Jazz and just all kinds of other stuff we worked together on. I sent him the song and said, what do you think? And he came back with the storyboard for this animation for Goliath, which I just thought was fantastic. And every time I see that, I get really inspired. There's something about the way those kids are coming toward the camera, ready to face off against this hideous monster.
Right.
And I just thought it was great. So we've got another couple videos in the works. Probably best to hold off on talking about them until you actually see them. But hopefully they will be equally interesting and each one different from all the others.
Very cool. I'm excited about it, man. That's fantastic. Now, of course, you guys have already done, I guess, the first leg of the tour to support the record. How did you feel like that went after it being so long before full-fledged, or so long since full-fledged touring for you?
Yeah, man. I hadn't done it in a couple of decades, so I was afraid I would have forgotten how. But it kind of came back. It wasn't quite like riding a bike, but for the most part, there was a certain amount of muscle memory in there, I guess. And of course, it's a really good band, so that makes a big difference. And we just have a blast when we play together. And frankly, hanging out and touring together, all 4 of us have been friends for a long time, and so that makes a big difference when you're touring. And it was just really enjoyable. So we're looking forward to next spring and doing the second leg, and it'll especially be nice with the album out. It will be probably even more fun since we'll be doing so much of the music from the new album.
Nice. Very cool. Now, of course, on one of the very recent shows, you guys kind of had an impromptu, unannounced Chagall Guevara reunion on stage as kind of like a last encore at a time that was going to be able to be done.
About 2.5 hours before showtime.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, no, it was crazy. I don't think it was until the night before that I realized that Mike Mead, our drummer, was going to be there and that Lynn was going to be there.
Right.
And I wasn't sure Dave was going to be there, but he emailed me and said he was going to try and come. He just had a family obligation he had to work out. So when he confirmed, I think the morning of the show, I said, hey, any chance of you coming up doing Gloria as an encore? Because Chagall used to play Gloria as an encore, the Dem song. And he said, yeah, that'd be fun. And I thought, if Lynn's going to be there, I should have him come up and play along. So I asked Lynn. He he texted back, yeah, sounds like fun. And then it was Peter Furler who said, was Mike going to be there? I said, yeah. He said, we should have him play too.
Yeah.
And I think John Painter said, I used to play violin blue because I'd forgotten that John had subbed for Wade James a few times. I was touring and we would cover some Chagall songs.
Right.
And so I kind of kept that in my mind and then ended up just a couple hours before showtime asking Mike, hey, would you want to play violin blue? And he texted back, yeah, what key? Little joke. And then I got a hold of Lynn. He said, yeah, I'm game. And but I couldn't get a hold of Dave until I think the concert had already started. Fleming and John were already playing. And so he said okay, but that meant we never rehearsed it. We hadn't played the song in I don't know 20 years or something.
Yeah.
And more maybe. And so we brought him up on stage. We played Gloria. That went great. And then we get ready to count off Violent Blue, and nobody had told John that we were going to play Violent Blue. And so, he's holding the bass, and he says to Dave, what note does it start on? And Dave tells him, he said, okay, I think I remember. And amazingly, the song came off almost flawlessly. That was a real shocker. So it was actually a good night.
Yeah, I saw the video of that. As a matter of fact, I was watching it leading up to calling you, and I was pretty impressed. That worked out really well.
Yeah.
Oh, man. So the only one that wasn't actually there was Wade. Was he just MIA, or is he doing something else?
Wade moved back to town about 9 months ago, and I don't think he's necessarily excited about ever necessarily playing bass again.
Oh, okay.
But I did text him beforehand and just said, hey, any chance you're going to be here? And he was just tied up, and so I decided not to even bother asking because I figured, if Chagall's ever able to do something in the future, I probably should hold off and, go over to his house with flowers or something.
Yeah. Well, now you've opened the door. So do you think there is a possibility of Chagall doing stuff in the future? Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, obviously we've kind of got our hands full with the new band's schedule and all our touring obligations and all that stuff. But I got to say, it was pretty fantastic being on stage with those guys again. And there was probably about a 30-second segment of Gloria where I just was kind of transfixed watching Dave and having Lynn next to me and just watching him play and sing. And it's just reminded me how much I loved being in Chagall Guevara and how spot on those guys still are, and they're playing, and Dave still sings great too. It was pretty fun.
Now, as I understand it, there were what 3 songs or 2 songs in a live album that Chagall had done at some point that are still unreleased.
That's correct. Yes, we probably recorded 4 or 5 songs for a second album that never happened, and so there was some unreleased stuff. So the idea was eventually to put out a live album and those unreleased tracks, and some of those songs were pretty good. They didn't sound like throwaways.
Right. Now, are those hung up in legal ownership, or is it just a matter of?
No, they're just hung up in our own laziness.
Oh, okay. And see, it's so funny to think about it in those terms because I think that fans, just have a hard time imagining these things exist. Why? They need to be available, and for you guys, it's
put them out. No, I know. It's weird how inertia kind of sets in when it's a band. I think that's the biggest difference between being in a band and being a solo artist. Is when I was a solo artist. Of course, I always had a band, but I was always making the calls, and so I always knew if I didn't make a decision, stuff wouldn't get done. Right. Yeah. But in a band, decision making just kind of swirled around, and it's like you're all kind of looking at each other and waiting for somebody to go first.
Yeah. Oh man, I get that. Oh shoot. As you probably remember, I know that you guys did just a few, or I guess you did an interview just a few days ago with Broken FM, and of course, Chris from Broken FM is my co-host, who we decided we needed to win over into a Steve Taylor fandom. And you will be happy to know that he told me today as we were doing our podcast that he's very much enjoying Goliath and that you have done it. So the one goal, the one goal of Goliath has been fulfilled.
Well, glad to hear we were able to win him over.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. He's like, I've listened to it like I think twice through, and he goes, you know what? He goes, some of them I like better than others, but ultimately, I'm a fan. I'm like, okay, good.
Oh, very good.
Well, awesome, man. Well, dude, I can't wait to catch the show the next time you guys, hopefully play in Portland, or who knows, know what circumstances will dictate. But it sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun whenever it happens.
We have every intention of getting to the Northwest this spring. We feel like we owe everybody up there some good shows, so we're going to make it one way or the other, and look forward to seeing you there.
Absolutely.
Unless it lands on a day when you're going to have your baby, which, in that case, you may at least want to bring a pager.
Right. There will be hard decisions to be made.
That's right.
It's like, I love you, honey, but come on.
We all have to have our priorities.
Right. Oh, that's fantastic. Well, dude, thank you so much for hanging out with us. I know that it was kind of last minute, and we both kind of did some adjusting here and there, but it's been a lot of fun being able to chat with you again and hang out, and I'm just thoroughly enjoying the new record. And it's one of those things where with you that you occupy a space in my heart that is always kind of an odd place, where it's like whenever new music is released, I'm excited and scared all at the same time, and all fear has been washed away. I'm so happy with it, and I'm glad that you are back in the music and putting out good stuff, and I can't wait to see what comes next from you, man. And in the meantime, I'll be thoroughly enjoying Goliath.
Thanks, Paul. Always a pleasure.